afternoon, everyone. This is David Gilks, and I'm really excited. Well, now the tables have turned. I have a chance to talk to to Andrew Kapur, um, who actually we had a podcast interview just a couple weeks ago, and had some really great conversation. And actually, I wanted to thank you for your ability to actually draw the conversation in a very powerful way so people got it. I know I can kind of run on at the mouth and I get excited and so but your ability to step in and pull key points out, it just shows that you're a much better listener than I am. So listen, everyone. Andrew Andrew and I were talking just before we started the recording, and what we're looking at was really just the capacity that so many of us have to take in large amounts of information, right? So information around um, spiritual teachings, right? There's numerous books and there's no end to the courses available, and now certifications. Um, the that just we're inundated with data, and I think it was a power versus force with Dr. David Hawkins, and just in the foreword he said, we're literally drowning in data, and it has changed almost nothing, right? It's just that the problems still exist, and there was just a couple of key points and is that forward that just had me enthralled forever. He said that man's dilemma has been, will always continue to be, is that he believes his own mental artifacts to be a reality. We actually believe what we think is true, and so it's a little bit of a scary landscape to get into, because, well, if I can't believe what I think, then how do I progress through life? And one theme that kept showing up over time was the idea of feeling. I think it was Dr. Beckwith, the guy that was on The Secret. He said, well, it's a feeling universe, right?
Michael Beckwith, yeah.
Yeah, Michael Beckwith. Thank you. And I heard it, I heard it for a long time, just like we were talking. You heard something for 20 years, and finally landed one day. And I heard that over and over again, but I just kept batting it away, saying, well, yeah, I get it, whatever, right? But then I understood that, oh no, actually, it is true. I mean, if you don't embody something physically, like the emotional context of something, it's not actually remotely as powerful as it could be. And our conversation just of a few moments ago was around gratitude, and we understand how powerful it is, right? I mean, we hear it over and over again. And did you write your gratitudes out? But again, maybe just being a male, we think the same way. But quite often, when I think about gratitude, it's like a checklist. What am I grateful for? I woke up this morning. I got eyeballs. I'm not blind. My organs function. I got food in the fridge. I have a career. I've got friends. My kids are healthy. Yeah, I'm grateful. But do I experience the emotions related to being grateful? And not at the level that I should. If I really took it into context, yeah, I'd just be leaping around like an idiot in my house, because I go, man, look what I got. It's like every day would just be joyous, but our joy almost becomes redundant just because we have this stuff so often in our space. So the thing, the idea, what we're going to play around with is this idea of gratitude and how to embody it. Now, we were talking about an experience that you had about 9 months ago within a previous career that that you're kind of less than grateful for that day, right? Kind of an uncomfortable day.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, where it was a challenge to be grateful in that particular moment.
Yeah, but your brain wanted you, said, you were kind of chastised by your own psychology, and your brain was going, well, I should be grateful. But the reality is, well, you weren't, and we're often not, right? And I used to see this inside when I had my practice. A lady would come up, a female client, and she'd be a stay-at-home mom, and everybody's going, wow, it's so amazing. You're so lucky. He goes, yeah, I'm really grateful. But then when you start digging around inside the conversation, well, I'm grateful until I'm not. And now I'm resentful. And then now I'm ashamed that I'm resentful because I should be grateful. And so I just bury it all, right? And I go, okay, well, that's just a terrible triad to live into, but I think that's really common, I mean, because we live in this world, and living in Canada, which we do, we have lots to be thankful for. But quite often, myself, and I'm sure yourself and many other people, find lots of petty little things that that make us seem terribly ungrateful. And gratitude is a practice, but it's not just the highlighting of the ideas and taking inventory each day, saying, yeah, I got everything here, kids are here, good, check, check, check. But it's the emotional experience, and that's a little bit of a different process than the mental acknowledgement, right?
Yeah, and I think just if I can interject here, I think you
Yes.
said really well going down, and you had mentioned power versus force. So like joy being like really high, 600 whatever vibration, and then falling into like neutral. Yeah, it's kind of okay. And then guilt and shame being at the lowest end of the pyramid, right? So
Yeah.
you can kind of go really quickly. Oh, I should be feeling grateful. I should be feeling joy. Now I'm ashamed. I'm just at the lowest vibration. So yeah, it's a tricky one. It could be a slippery slope.
Yeah, and how fast do we go there, right?
Yeah.
So let's take a couple experiences. So I'm going to ask you to recall the experience about 9 months ago, right? The less than ideal day. And as you go through the experience, just think about what it is that you are experiencing. And when you remember and imagine that day, do you remember it? Can you see it? Is it more of a visual reoccurrence, a visual memory? Is it more of a feeling memory? How did your brain actually store that memory?
Yeah, it stored it with the
Okay,
feeling of that how did I end up here?
right,
How come I didn't make better decisions
right,
to avoid this?
right,
And how many series, again, thinking how many series of wrong turns that I did to end up in this position, and really just feeling that kind of had to get out of that quick. It was that kind of shame
right.
vibration.
Yeah, right. So where was that expressed in the body? Where was that feeling expressed?
It was a lot in the gut,
Right,
in the gut feeling, like kind of like um, almost like I was sick to my stomach
right,
about
right.
what I that I
Okay.
was in this situation. Yeah.
Okay, so sick to your stomach. You said you talked about shame, like I did everything right, but obviously not, because look where I am playing with the spiders, right?
Yeah,
Right.
I was, yes.
Um, is there any visual aspect to the memory, or is it more just a feeling?
Yeah, yeah, because just to keep context for the listener, because they're going to find it really strange if we just say playing with spiders. So I was in a I was, I was in a crawl space. It was part of my job, and I was going in this crawl space, and there was like arachnophobia, like the movie, where it's just there's not one or two spiders, and this no one's been in this for maybe 10, 20 years. I don't know,
Right,
underneath this floor, and it's about 1 foot high, and there's no light, right? So it's just you got to go in there and kind of just give your assessment, make sure the wood is good, make sure
right,
the supports are there, insulation, things like that.
right,
So that kind of, yeah, so that feeling, first that feeling of when you look inside and then you say, you got to get the courage to go
right,
to get your physical
right,
body to do the action
right,
I'm going to go through with
right,
that, right?
right. Yeah. So yeah, there's so many elements to it, right? Because it's the disgust of, and the apprehension, a little bit of fear going in there because it's a small space. So claustrophobia, the uh, the the fear that we all have of many-legged creatures running into our orifices, right? There's lots of things happening all at the same time. So and it's funny, even though those experiences, we think, well, it's over with, but it's still, but it can become a part of our narrative if we're not careful, because it's still alive. It's so easily accessible. And as you said before, that you kind of chided yourself, saying, come on, seriously, like, look where you live. You live in Canada. You have all access to all these things. I should be grateful. But in the reality, in that moment, is still existing. It still is alive inside your mind. There's no there's no gratitude in the moment, because it's all uncomfortable. And I think that's one of the things that we have to be careful of is that, yes, we should be grateful, but we're also human and we're also imperfect. But this experience of actually the practice, the spiritual practice of gratitude is actually part of this process. So let's just put um, that experience of 9 months aside. And um, and you had talked about gratitude and how you experience gratitude, and you talked about two really important things. Because they said, you're grateful to be here, grateful to be Canadian, grateful to live in Montreal. I mean, lots of wonderful things, but two really stood out for you, which are really, really powerful. One is your grandmother. And you said you grew up with her. This is where you first got into the line of work and study that you do now.
Yeah, that's right. She was so I had very bad asthma as a child
Right.
and was bedridden. So um, there were doctors, Western medicine. There's a lot of great stuff about Western medicine, but there's also some challenging things to finding really the root.
Right.
A lot of medicines for the symptoms, but not really for the root. So I couldn't breathe, and I couldn't breathe. I mean, I couldn't breathe. Like I could breathe enough to stay alive, but very shallow. And sometimes you get that panic feeling because your
Right.
body, and you get really, really hot and sweaty, and it's very scary. So my grandmother had brought me to a healer, and it was the first time I ever experienced, someone that could heal. I didn't really know anything about
Right.
that. Just I've heard of it, but and for 24 hours after that healing session, I could breathe like I had nothing, like I had no
Right.
asthma at all for 24 hours. And all the medications never did that for me. But after 24 hours, kind of faded away. 48 hours later, I was kind of in the same position. I went back a few times, and it was pretty great. And then my grandmother learned that she was quite gifted, and then she became like extremely, extremely powerful very quickly. She's a very smart lady, and you
Right.
would never guess, any of us, that her life would go in that direction.
Right.
Which is very proper, from a very well-to-do family, and everything was jewels, and this is the way the dessert fork goes here and stuff like that. So it was a very, very 180, right?
Right. Yeah.
On that. And she became very strong, and then she started healing me, and then she started teaching me
Right.
like how to kind of heal myself,
Right.
and even how to heal others, and it was really, really profound. So she put me on that path, and she gave me
Right.
this book called Mind Power by John Kehoe, and that was the first book that I read that told me I could create my reality.
Right. So can you can you kind of go back through the history of all of those pieces? Because again, obviously there's some history there, and there's a lot of different pieces to it. Can you? You don't speak it, but just imagine. Can you pull back a memory from your experience with her, and one that's let's say the most profound of all of them. One that was very telltale and relatively easy to access. Something that actually makes you feel like you're in this space where the recognition of what is happening, the recognition of what this means, kind of lands on you, and it gives you that sense of awe and wonder. That sense, again, you talked about the gratitude that you had for this incredible this luck that she did this 180 and you happen to be her grandson be there at the right time. So can you think of an experience where it finally clicked in, you kind of sat in like an awe and wonder and just, okay, so pull a memory into your head. You don't have to speak it, you just have to remember it. Okay. Now when you pull the details back, because what we're looking at is we just want to go combing through your episodic memory, right? And we want to just see how the brain is stored. And as we were talking prior, that the positive memories are actually really low resolution. They're really hard to access because the brain's going, yeah, it was a good thing, but it won't save you from a lion, so you don't need to remember it. But we do need to remember it because that's where joy comes from. It's not trying to find more things; it's remembering what's already been. So take that experience and pull it up in as much detail as you can. And how do you remember that experience? Is that when you pull it forward, is it more of a visual experience that you're pulling through? Is it more, is it primarily auditory? Is it more feeling based?
Uh, yeah, I can feel the feeling very strong. Yeah.
Where is the feeling located in your body?
It's starts in the heart,
Okay.
but I can feel it through, like the energy through my body, starting
Okay.
from there, going through my body, right to my head, to my toes.
Now, so is there any other aspect to the memory? Is there an auditory component, like a conversation? Is it a visual part to it where you can see the environment, or is it just primarily a feeling?
No, I do. I see the bed. I see like where I used to lie, like my old bedroom,
Right.
and I see that kind of thing. And then yeah, and in one way, like only understanding fully later in life,
Right.
what it really was that she did for me.
Right. Okay. Can you, when you're observing the space, the bedroom, can you see you? Like, are you observing you as the child?
Hmm.
Or okay. Now, just if you pull that image closer, can you actually drop into him?
Hmm.
Okay. So do that right now. Drop into him, and be in that moment, knowing what you know now, and let the story play out. Let the story play out, but with your understanding of what's going on. You said it wasn't until much later that you actually understood, the power of the moment. Well, go back in that moment, and then with acknowledgement, and then bring it back to life, but with the understanding of exactly what's going on. Let that child have the gift of the knowledge that you have right now, right? And as you go through that, run that experience through, and then pay attention to the shift in sensation, the shift in feeling. You talked about this feeling in your heart. Talk about this energy. Experience it as him. He has access to your knowledge and awareness, but you have access to his youthful wonder and joy and emotion. And allow that just to land and land and land and land until you feel it in every cell in your body. Okay. Now stay in that position. I may as well keep you there in this beautiful space. Actually, it feels really good. I can feel it from here. It's very. Uh, so you also mentioned that in meditation, you're going to go into theta meditation. You also had that kind of experience. Is that energy similar to what you just had there right now?
It's different. This was more this kind of connection to her soul or
Right. Okay.
her thing and feeling of that. And the theta is being everything,
Okay.
like that feeling. It's so amazing. There's this point, and I'm sure you've experienced it, and maybe some of the people listening right now as well, is that you cease to become. It's what Joe Dispenza talks
Right.
about. There's no
Right.
time, no space, no. It's that.
Right.
And when people talk about meditation, sometimes I think it's a really wide definition, let's say,
Right.
of
Right.
what meditation, but really true meditation, that theta state is suddenly you're everything, and you're the stars, and you're the mountain, and you're everything, and you cease to be you,
Right.
and you just feel joy.
Right. So, so I think out of the two, I think this one with your grandmother is the most powerful one. So here's something we want to play around with, and again, these um, we can do these on our own, but you have to, it takes a little bit of practice. You practice playing around with your own mind in perceptual positions. Now, there's you here today in the conversation with me. How many years ago was that memory of you with your grandmother, roughly?
um 35, something like that.
Okay.
35 years, a
Okay.
long time.
So I had this, I had this idea in my head, this image, like we were talking before. You get these, kind of intuitive nudge of how to move this stuff forward, how to connect the dots, as it were. And if you're standing at the end of a very long road, and on either side of the road, there's these tall rushes. It could be wheat, it could be cattails, right? But just on either side, there's a path in the middle, and there's you at one end, you today, right? and then there's this child, younger version of you, and in between him and you is all the experiences of life that you had, everything that you've experienced that you can recall. But I wonder what would happen if he, imagine this, like just see if he's willing to do it. See that younger version of you is willing to do this, to get out of the bed, to embrace his grandma, to take that amazing sense of safety and energy, take it in from her. And then she's going to challenge you, or maybe not challenge you, but she's going to send you, it's kind of like the hero's journey. And now he actually knows you. He can see you at the end of this trail, and he's going to put his hands out. And as he puts his hand out, his fingers touch the grasses that are growing there. And the experience that he had lights it up. And each one of those grasses represents a moment in time of your life. But that has forgot the experience of that moment. And so just close your eyes, and you see him at the end of this long path. And his fingers are reaching out, and he's letting his fingers caress the grasses. And as he does, they kind of light up. They turn into the color changes, like you watch a wind blow across a wheat field. And as he's walking forward, he's bringing the energy forward, and he's touching all of your experiences you've ever had from that day of recognition, and bringing it forward. And every step he takes, it just, that the energy and everything, every amazing thing that you've read and understood and done and been a part of, now actually has that deeper emotional gradient to it. And just let him walk towards you, and let him walk towards you. And when he reaches the end of the path, and you take your own time in doing this, reach in and embrace him. And as you do, when your arms close around him, he disappears, and what you're left with is just the feeling.
It's intense.
uh, yeah, it just, again, it's just the challenge that we have with this incredible thing that we are as a human, is that we've lost a part of our culture, and we've lost our spiritual practices, and we've lost the deep grounding element that you got from your grandmother, that we used to get from our elders, because they would still be in our environment. And so and there's something so profound. And for people, again, and I keep talking about you and I, but we're not the only people in the world that do this, is that we're so curious about so many things, and we keep taking this stuff in, this knowledge, like a, like a starving man at a buffet, just keep taking it in, and just because it's so exciting and so profound. But but sometimes what I find is lacking in myself is that, I, you know, the level of say joy that I feel is nowhere near the level of understanding that I have. Right. And I'm going, what would it be like? Would that just be insane if I could actually have it both ways? Now, tell me what was that experience like when that young version of you is walking, he's touching the grasses as he goes through, and his fingers are just gently caressing them, and everything just kind of lighting up as he goes through. What was going on?
Really, really deep appreciation, really deep gratitude of those moments when you said like the moments that you'd forgotten. There's
Yeah.
so many good moments
Oh yeah.
that I've forgotten, you know? And just like as you said, because we favor the negative. So all those many amazing moments are just like filled with,
Yeah.
and then at the end, which was surprising to me, even though I know how gifted you are, but it was surprising to me is it actually felt like somebody it was in the room hugging me.
Oh,
Like I felt that, like I felt warmth around
yeah.
me, like which is very very surprising. Let's say,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And I feel right now, I still feel it. I feel like I feel warmer,
Yeah.
like physically warmer, and I feel like that feeling that I've just had somebody a loving embrace.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's stay in that beautiful space. And man, like I can feel you from here. Like it's so interesting. Um, because my body feels very heavy. And I, and I can feel, if you're watching a movie with your girlfriend and there's a chick flick and, there's a scene where you don't want to, and they're kind of sobbing and yeah, whatever. But somewhere inside of your brain's going, yeah, no, actually, that's actually pretty touching. I should recognize that's kind of touching. And that's that experience that I had because I just, man, it's all we want to do is feel like everything. We take courses because we want to feel different. We get into relationships because we want to feel better. We eat food because of the feeling. We do everything not for the attainment of the thing. It's for the feeling that we get, that we think we're going to get when we get it.
Mhm.
It's always the feeling.
Mm.
And it just took me forever to figure that out. And better now than never. Um, so listen, in that beautiful state, I want you to look back 9 months ago and look down that same path. And there's you from 9 months ago. Now I know, what are you going to tell them? And you don't have to tell me. You don't have to actually articulate. But how can you change that experience? What can you do for him? What does he need to know? What does he need to feel? Because you're so well versed in all these conversations. You have such an abundance of knowledge. But in that feeling state, what would that feeling state? What would you offer to him? So his experience of 9 months ago actually changes.
With with my heart, I feel more that in that just feeling of love and not having to know words to kind of
Right,
tell, like words of wisdom.
right,
And that's from my heart, and it would be, I see covering in white light, covering in love, like just embracing in love, and that's all that would be needed. And then intellectually, I just see more, and I know that's not the point of the exercise, but I just see that it shows the contrast,
yeah,
right? Understand the contrast, and appreciate that you can appreciate more by having that contrast,
right,
by having that bad day.
yeah. So when you think about the bad day now, do you think of it the same way? So when you pull it back inside your mind and you recall it, does it come up exactly the same way? Does it feel the same way? Does it look the same way?
No,
Yeah,
no. What I what I like to try to do, that I learned from Tony Robbins, was to make all the bad memories gray,
right,
and without feeling, and make all the good. But so it was kind of a grayed memory, um, and very little color and stuff like that. But now it's colorful, but not badly. Do you
yeah,
know it?
yeah, yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
like Disney. It's this Disney
yeah,
movie color
yeah,
now. Like happy colored.
yeah, yeah. And what's the feel? When you think of it, what's the feeling associated to it? So it's very visceral. So what do you? Because there was shame and there was a bit of fear and apprehension. What are you feeling now when you think about that occurrence of 9 months ago?
Yeah, I don't feel that shame. I don't feel
Yeah,
that. I do feel that thing of just love, and just
yeah,
being, just being,
yeah,
not, it's not about, it's living in the now of that.
yeah,
I'm like looking, because I'm trying to visualizing it, like living in that now and being fine with it, and more of not in love with that situation still, but just very, very neutral with it,
yeah.
right? Neutral, but also I still feel that thing of that love,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, because really what we wanted to remove was part of the judgment that you had on yourself for this is what I've been reduced down to. This is how worthless I am because this is all I can do, and all this work it meant nothing. And we want to be careful not to. to take these moments in time, because, it's just that experience 9 months ago was the way you felt from that. And maybe I'll just do this really quickly if you don't mind. That experience of shame and frustration, where did that come from? Because it didn't come from that experience. You processed the environment based off a previous experience. It wasn't that one, right? There's something else going on prior to that, because you used that for the recognition that gave you the perception to think of that whole experience that way. The crawl space, the spiders, I've done all this stuff and it means nothing, and look what I've been reduced down to. Well, there's a conversation even before that set that one up, right? And this is the tricky part about, what we do inside of our mind, is that, you know, how many memories have we had? Like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. God, it's like stars in the sky. And so at the end of the day, what we're really trying to do is that, okay, first of all, before I actually go deal with my problems, I need to anchor. So, the problem is when I think about my problems without actually being stable, I actually become that. You become the guy from 9 months ago, insecure, frustrated. So, so you just kind of re-traumatize yourself, not helpful. And we know the problem's there and it doesn't feel good. Good, we'll deal with that in a second. What would be a stable vantage point, a more powerful state to be in first, embody that. And then from that point of observation, then you go look at it again, that the whole idea of the theory of relativity, right? It's all relative. You create a new state of being, a chosen state of being, and then you observe what you thought was the problem, and you realize, actually, not really much of a problem anymore. And we took this from physical rehab. If I had a knee problem, but I realized that there was a bunch of other things going on. I worked on the stability, the congruency. Let's say if my hip is weak and my knee is damaged, I work on developing the hip strength and core strength more, and it takes the pressure off the knee. So the problems that we have aren't the problem, because they're a conglomeration of many, like a multiplicity of things going at the same time. So the primary goal is, who do I need to become to have the life that I want? Who do I need to become to face all the things I'm going to have to face? But make it consistent. So I think that image of your grandmother and the idea of gratitude. So my homework for you is to take that experience of you and your grandmother and just keep replaying it, and even in a meditative state, and just rebuild it, and then look for, as you go through that field, and as you light up all those memories, when one shows up that's kind of a little bit more profound, a little bit more relevant, maybe just it kind of strikes you, stop, pull it in, and then do the same thing you did with your grandmother. Take the memory in and just be, in awe of your life, right? And so you can meditate on that until you're vibrating, and your eyes are moist with tears, and just keep going. And the practice of gratitude is for what already has been. Nothing that you can see, nothing that you can actually touch, but what already has existed across the entire framework of your life. And the more that you do that, and the brain's going, okay, I see what he's up to. I see what he's up to. I see what he's up to. I see a pattern in the way this guy's doing. And you keep highlighting all this great stuff. When you go to bed, the brain does what to your memory? It consolidates it. And what if the gratitude thing that you were doing, the brain recognized that as your practice, your specific spiritual practice? There's a lot of a continuity because you did it every day, but very, very specific, very, very repetitious. And then a couple of weeks into it, your brain started doing that for you. It started going through and it started bringing up, hey, look, here's this memory from 1974. Look at this. And all of a sudden sounds and smells and conversations and things just erupt into your mind that I hadn't thought about that in years. And allow your brain to do that, but give it some momentum. Yeah. That was awesome, man.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very strong.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You're in a very different space right now than when we first started, and you feel very grounded, and I can see it in your eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yeah. Very in a very meditative state. Yeah. For sure.
Beautiful. Well, listen, I again, huge appreciation for you having these conversations with me, because I know both the work that we do, because we're we're heading in the same direction. We want the same things for ourselves and for other people, to be able to experience what's possible with all this beautiful information around and incredible people and teachers around. But, the challenge is, do we need just more of it, or do we need to do more with what we already have? And maybe we can slow down a little bit and just instead of actually going thin and wide, we can go deep and, and narrow, and just really dig down deep into, like I said, if you never read another book in your life, probably be fine. If you never took another course, you'd be amazing.
100%.
Yeah.
All these things I see as invoking ideas, but really you could just close your eyes or look at a candle for the rest of your life and get more done than reading libraries or being on
Yes.
the computer all day.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, brother, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and willingness to go through this with me.
Thank you. Such a pleasure. It's such a very interesting and enlightening experience, David. Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
All right. Thank you.